Hey, what's up, good people? Here we are once again for another video on the YouTube channel. So for today's video, I'm doing something a little different. I'm gonna be shifting gears from my normal weekly messages and sermons to cover some different topics and ideas as they come to me. And so for today, I wanted to share with you guys three of the lessons that I got from the recent documentary called Yeezus. No, it's not called Yeezus. It's called Jeen-yuhs, um, which was directed by Coodie. And, it's a documentary all about Kanye West. If you haven't seen it already, go check it out on Netflix. And so, yeah, for today, because my wife and I, we just watched it this past weekend. And so I watched parts 2 and 3 this past weekend, and at the end of it, there were three things that really stood out to me and spoke to me. And so today I want to just share those three lessons that I got from the Genius documentary, and how I hope that these three things will impact me uh, from this day forward. So let's get right into it. And hopefully by the end of this video, some of the things shared will impact you, resonate with you in some way. If so, please put it in the comments so we can share, dialogue, have a conversation about if these things impacted you as well. So, three lessons from the documentary. Number one, in the documentary, the first thing that stood out to me was Kanye's relentless and unquenchable belief in himself and the gifts and the talents that were within him. Kanye West, of course, is a very polarizing figure. Some people love him, some people hate him. But one of the things that you can't deny is that Kanye had a relentless belief in himself and his gifts and his talents. From the first part of the documentary, one of the things that you saw was Kanye believed in himself, and he believed in his craft and his talent. And one of the reasons that really spoke to me is because early on, as he was building and grinding in Chicago and New York, even if people didn't catch it, even if people didn't catch the vision the way he did, even if they didn't see it or understand it, it didn't deter him and his belief in himself. So early on, when people recognized him as a producer but not really as a rapper, people didn't really take him seriously. But he knew he had something powerful within him, and so he didn't allow anyone else's disbelief or dismissing him to deter him and to stop that train from going forward and pressing on. And I know for me, that's one of the mistakes that I've made in my own life. There have been times when I've, had belief in myself and the gifts and the talents that I've had within me, but oftentimes it wasn't to the point of believing in myself and those talents and gifts, even regardless of other people's actions or inactions. So there have been times when I've done, plays and productions and events, and based on people's actions or inactions, I allowed that to stop my train from running and from moving forward and from pressing on. And so, if I did this event and I didn't get the support or the turnout or, the audience that I thought I would get, and that happened this time and then that time, that takes a lot of steam out of you. And so one of the things I've done, and one of the mistakes I've made, is again allowing other people's actions and inactions, or them not catching the vision, not believing in the vision, to keep me like a train just sitting in the train station and not continuing to move forward, not continuing to press forward to accomplish the things that I know God has placed me here to do. But one of the things I got from Kanye West in the documentary was he had this relentless belief in himself and the gifts and talents that were within him. And he didn't allow anyone else's disbelief or not catching it, not understanding it to deter him and stop him from continuing to move forward. Now, of course, there's some balance, right? And there's a healthy balance to believing in yourself and your craft and your gifts and your talents. And there's an unhealthy point, that you can see in the documentary as well, where, you get to the point where you think you yourself are a god. I myself, I don't see myself ever getting to the point that I'm referring to myself as a god, or, to have this sense of ego to the point that I'm a god and, all these other people are like peons beneath me. But there is a healthy sweet spot of relentlessly believing in yourself and your gifts and talents, so much so that other people's disbelief and not catching it, not understanding it, doesn't derail you and doesn't stop you. And again, that's one of the things that I've had to learn in my own life, to not allow that to derail and stop me from pressing forward. So that was the first lesson I got from the documentary. Number two, foundation. Actually, if you go back and watch the video I did last week, I talked about foundation. And when I watched the documentary, and if you watched it yourself, one of the things that is clear as day is what Kanye's foundation was. And Kanye's foundation was his mother. And it was powerful because what you saw was one of the reasons why Kanye West could believe in himself so much is because of how much his mother believed in him. One of the scenes that really hit me was this conversation between Kanye and his mom. And right off the dome, his mom begins to rap one of his songs from when I think he was 13. He was really young. It was, years old. But here's his mom off the dome just spitting some of those verses. And to me, that was powerful. That as a kid, to have, your mother believing in you so much, that propels you into believing that you can do what you set your mind to do. And so as I talk about foundation, there's two angles that I want to talk about foundation from. It's as a parent, and then it's as that child. Now, I have two children myself. I have a young boy and a young girl. And in terms of foundation, one of the things that is key is for us as parents to really understand that we are building such a foundation for our kids to propel them into becoming the people that God has created them to become. And that is it's a heavy and serious responsibility. And what you saw with Donda, Kanye's mother, is how her belief in Kanye propelled him to where he, eventually ended up. And when she passed and he lost that, you saw that you saw when he lost that foundation, how it impacted his life from that point forward. And so again, as parents, I think we have that responsibility to really understand the significance we have in the lives of our kids. And so, what foundation are we pouring into our kids? What foundation are we laying for our kids for them to believe that, years from now, I hope and, pray that my son and my daughter would stand and go, man, this is hard, this is rough, but I know I can do it because my mom believed in me. My dad believed in me. Even in those times when I was unsure about myself and whether I could do this or not, my mom always believed in me. My dad always believed in me. And, by the grace of God, I had a mother like that in my own life who believed in me to the ends of the earth. Even to this day, one of the things I love about my mom is she believes in me and she supports everything I do. And with that kind of belief and support, that propels a son or a daughter to know that I can do what I set my mind to do. And so as parents, that's powerful. Now, on the flip side, from the kid's perspective, here's a moment of caution. I love my parents. I love my wife. I love my kids. I love my family. And the thing is, as much as I love my mother and my dad and my wife and my kids, it's a dangerous place when you make any of these people your foundation. Because here's the thing. As much as I love my family, people at some point will do something or say something that's going to disappoint you, that's going to hurt you, that's going to rub you the wrong way. At some point, we're all going to leave this earth. At some point, I'm going to lose people close to me, people that I love. And if I've made these people, even my parents, again, whom I love dearly, if I make them my foundation, then what happens if I lose them one day? I think, as you see in the documentary, if you make a person, even your mother, your foundation, then when you lose that individual, if that's your foundation, it's going to wreck you. And it will, if you're not able to navigate through that process to heal and become whole again, then you'll forever remain cracked and broken because your foundation has been ripped apart. And so for me, my foundation always has to remain Christ. I'm a believer, and for me, as a Christian, my foundation is on Jehovah, Yahweh the Father, and Yeshua, his son. That's my foundation. And so even if I lose people, even if people disappoint me and I lose loved ones, as much as that may hurt, as much as I may, grieve and have to deal with that pain, my foundation isn't shattered and crumbled because I've lost this person. Because I understand that my foundation can't be another person. It has to be on the rock. And the only rock that we have that stands the test of time and can handle that kind of weight is Jesus. Because, on the natural, no person is built to handle that kind of weight, to be anybody's foundation. My wife and my mother, they weren't built to be my foundation. That's too much weight. As much as I love my wife and kids, I can't be the foundation, the ultimate foundation for my kids. At some point, my kids, as much as I pour into them and invest into them and lead them and guide them, as much as I do that, there's a certain point when my children have to have their own foundation that's built on the rock, Jesus, because at some point I may disappoint them. I don't have all the answers. I don't know it all. And so at some point, I'm going to, even now, refer my kids to the Lord, because they're going to have to be able to stand on their own foundation on Jesus apart from me as their dad. And so, again, as parents and as children, that's key. Let us never think that as much as we love our children and our parents, that we substitute and make them our foundation. Our kids can never be our foundation. Our parents can never be our foundation. And again, we love them, we respect them, we honor them, we cherish them. We treasure them in all of that. But again, ultimately, our foundation has to be on the solid rock upon which I stand. I'm getting a little churchy. So, all right, that's the second lesson that I got from the documentary. The foundation that we're building and laying for our kids, and then ultimately the foundation that we have to have, which is the rock, Jesus. And then lastly, point number 3. One of the things I got from the documentary is Kanye's dedication and determination to his art, his craft, and his passion. That speaks to me, because I know for me that's one of the areas I can use some growing up in. First, it was that belief, that relentless belief in myself and the talents and gifts God has placed in me. That's one of the areas I can grow in. And then secondly, an area I can stand to grow in is that relentless determination and dedication to the work and the craft and the assignment that God has placed me on this earth to do. So if you watch the documentary, one of the things that you saw was with his first album, College Dropout, one of the things you saw in the documentary was how Rockefeller wasn't really getting behind it and funding it. So what did he do? He put his own money into it. He had another partner who helped him to get into this studio, like after hours. So, they may not have been able to get in there until, who knows, 2 a.m. But whatever it took, he needed to do to get this project done, he was going to do it. And so, they would go into the studio after hours to get it done. He'd come out of his own pocket to get the video done. He said he spent like 30 grand, I think, for Jesus Walks. And so one of the things that you saw was this relentless dedication and determination to the work, to the craft, and the passion. And again, it was so relentless that even if other people didn't catch it and understand it, it wasn't going to deter him from pressing forward. And that's one of the things that I can take and apply to my own life. That sort of relentless dedication and determination. Because, for me, one of the things that came to mind as I was, thinking through this message is certain people I've known from places like New York. I don't want to generalize everybody who's from New York, but everyone I've known who's from New York just has a certain sense of this, I don't know what you call it, like this chutzpah, it's not a chip on the shoulder, but people from New York, they just got this, I don't know, this bravado, this kind of by any means necessary kind of attitude that, if you were like, if you were, 12 or 13 and you were having to fend for yourself at a very young age and you had to, make it happen. If you had to like hustle to, get things paid, you were the man of the house at 13, then you sort of have this natural bend to be determined and dedicated to make some things happen. And, for me personally, because I didn't have that type of environment that, where I had to like make things happen at a young age, my parents provided for me in many ways. The Lord has favored me in many ways. And so being blessed as I was, I didn't have to like scrap, to put things together for myself. And so, where I am now, I have to be, inspired, and by seeing things like the documentary Jeen-yuhs, it reminds me that I have to be determined and dedicated relentlessly to the craft, the work, the art, and the gifts and talents that God has placed in me to get these things done. And so those were three things that really stood out to me from the documentary Jeen-yuhs. And if you haven't watched it, I encourage you to go back and watch it. And there's a lot of other things that can be said about it. Again, some people love Kanye, some people hate him. He can be a very polarizing figure. But just from my watching, those are three things that really impacted me from watching it. And I hope to apply it to my own life from this day forward. So hopefully that's been helpful to you. If you saw the documentary, if anything I said resonated with you, then please put it in the chat so we can have a conversation about it. I'd love to hear what stood out to you most, what lessons you learned, and if any of these three things that I shared resonated with you. That's it. I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye-bye, and God bless.